There is no more terrible instant of enlightenment than the one in which you discover your father is a man with human flesh. From Collected Sayings of the Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. Welcome to Reading Dune, a podcast where we read Dune by Frank Herbert and talk about it. If you're a Fremen or a first-time reader, this podcast is for you. My name is Caleb Pauls.
And I'm Evan Diaz.
And together, we're going to read some Dune.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are. Awesome. So, this week, chapter 14, we got a relatively small chapter this week. I just want to note something real fast. I'm reading on my Kindle. Here, you can't relate the glare, it's pretty bad. And on Kindle, it shows you which where things are highlighted the most, which is kind of a nice feature when you're reading books because you get to see what other people like and what the most popular phrases are.
Cool.
This phrase by the Collected Sayings of Muad'Dib, and it starts this chapter, has 4,000 highlights.
Whoa!
So, this opening quote, a lot of people resonated with it.
Right, this is good juice.
It's real spicy.
Yeah.
Because there is a certain moment of growing up, right? When you realize that your parents are actually just human beings trying to make it in the world, who don't know everything, and are doing just the best they can. And it is a sort of a terrible feeling.
Yeah, it's super crazy. And yeah, I think like it can even come in waves, you know, like the one day where your dad can't quite pick you up and like spin you around anymore when you're like kind of a little kid age and it's like, oh God, you're like, oh, you're fallible? Like you're weak? You have weakness? You know? But it gets even heavier when you're like a teenager. So like Paul in this chapter, like his age of being like, and imagine being as smart as Paul is, being like,
right,
oh shoot, like you were a man and a rather fallible one, like one that can fail, you know? And anyway, that's all in the chapter. We're going to talk about the chapter, Caleb. So
and
what's happening over here?
That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
All right. So, a little context to where we are, what happened last chapter. You want to fill us in about what happened, what we learned?
I'm trying to remember now. I was not ready to talk about last chapter. I was ready to talk about this chapter, Caleb.
Yes, I understand that.
Duke, Leto, and Paul are in the like military airport type situation, whatever it's called, right?
Yeah, I think they're still in the room where they had the all staff meeting.
Right. So they're in a conference room and all this stuff is going down and Leto's been making plans to like not just be on the defensive, to be on the offensive. And Paul is just kind of observing everything and he has some intelligence that he's given his dad and he's sort of learning the ropes of like, okay, who do you tell what to, who needs to know this, who needs to know that. And like plans within plans and all that.
Oh, always plans within plans. So in the last chapter, Leto talks to Howitt, and Howitt gives him the film strip, his micro USB or whatever he gives him, of like the religious intelligence that Howitt had gathered on the Fremen. Yeah. Because on the first day, as probably the Duke and his family were getting a tour of the city, which would be something very normal they would do. Where are they living? The Fremen in the street kept shouting,
Marty!
Yeah. And so he wants to know what that means. And so we kind of pick up right into that. So I'm assuming
there's also the note, right? The like scrap of a note that they found.
Right. So now Howitt thinks it's the Lady Jessica who is the traitor, but Paul and Leto know that Lady Jessica has also has intel that there's a traitor among them.
Right.
So, and they know it's not her. We know who it is as readers. Who is a traitor? It's Yui.
Oh, by the way, dude, I've spent like the past week trying to put some kind of melody to the children's song about Yui, and it just doesn't work. I don't know if Frank had like a tune to that little poem that he wrote, but as a like person who writes music, like almost professionally, it's really hard to put a tune to that little Yui.
Yui. 1,000 deaths aren't enough for Yui.
I mean, like that doesn't work with anything, you know? Couldn't he make it like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or something?
No, yeah, he was a journalist. He wasn't. He wasn't.
Anyway.
Anyhow, all right. So let's dive into the chapter. So Duke pretty much, I think, comes right after this conversation with Howitt, goes to Paul and shows him the film strip because this is obviously intel he wants Paul to know because they're shouting it at him. So the Duke is they're in the room and he says, "Paul, I'm doing a hateful thing, but I must." He stood beside the portable poison snooper that had been brought into the conference room for breakfast. The thing's sensor arm hung limply over the table, reminding Paul of some weird insect newly dead. I just love just the poison snoopers.
Yeah.
It's just to snoop out poison. So I imagine, as the coffee and donuts come in, it's just like, this is bad. Nope, okay, it's good.
Like, how often does it snoop poison? You know, like
that's a great question.
Like, how often do you have to pick poison out of your food?
I mean, does it make a sound when it like identifies poison? Just like snoop, 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 snoop.
I want to picture the end of the arms just having little noses, like human noses on them.
That's way more Frank Herbert than you know. I can't get into it because it's super spoilers for like books 5 and 6, but that's very close. And if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. All right. So, yes, Paul had the viewer in front of him containing the short film clip on the Fremen religious practices. The clip had been compiled by one of Howitt's experts, and Paul found himself disturbed by the references to himself, Mahdi, and the Lisan al-Gaib. He could close his eyes and recall the shouts of the crowd. So that is what they hope, he thought. He remembered what the old Reverend Mother had said, the Kizrak Haderach. The memories touch his feelings of terrible purpose, shading this strange world with sensations of familiarity that he could not yet understand. Every time terrible purpose comes up, something bad's about to happen. Like that.
I think I figured that much out.
Or it's alluding to something,
right.
And I don't know quite what that terrible purpose is. I have some ideas. Because the Kizrak Haderach is somebody, so the B'nai Gesserit Reverend Mothers can see down the female memories of their past ancestry, and the Kizrak Haderach can look in the place they cannot. So also do the male ones.
Right.
And maybe this terrible purpose is like deep down in those memories is trying to pop up. Like he knows somehow.
Yeah.
So all this is this Messiah rhetoric, and he knows that there's something evil about it because he can't quite put his finger on it. So then the Duke interrupts his train of thought to talk what he wants to talk about, because that's what dads do.
Right.
A hateful thing, the Duke said. What do you mean? That's what Paul. And so now Leto says, like, all right, the Harkonnens want to trick me into making me distrust Jessica.
Yeah.
But they don't know that I would rather, like, there's nobody I trust more.
Right.
Like, it's impossible for him to distrust Jessica.
Yeah.
And so he's got to, and he goes on later to kind of like explain, because Paul says, well, you might as well mistrust me, right? Like for family, more than anything else, we're never going to give each other up. But the Duke says that he has to make Harkonnens believe that they have succeeded in having him mistrust Jessica.
Oh, gosh.
which means that he can't tell her like everything that's happening. He just has to act like she's mad at him, which will make her mad at him.
Right.
Because he's not telling the whole truth.
Right.
Which
and
I
she's
feel
really desperate. Like she could figure out his crap, like
right. Like who is he really gonna fool?
Right.
And I think this is where we start to see part of Leto's like disintegration.
Yeah.
Almost. Like it's unraveling, and he's unraveling at this point, which I think that first quote kind of like emulates or like talks about.
Yeah.
Let's see. So of course Paul's like, "Why would you do this? What's going on?" And then Duke goes, "Your mother's response must not be an act. Oh, she's capable of supreme act, but too much rides on this. I hope to smoke out the traitor." So it's the idea of if we let them think they're winning, maybe they'll show which hand holds the knife.
Right. They said it in the last chapter, like, depending on the action they take, the traitor might grow careless and like
trip up, and then we know who he is.
Yeah.
Or she is, but it's definitely a he. Because it's Huey. Like, there's definitely no setup and payoff here. Like we know exactly. There's no mystery. We know exactly who it is.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Frank. But I guess that kind of builds the tension a little bit because we're just seeing them make a bunch of mistakes and saying, "Please don't do that."
Yep.
All right. But the Duke says something really important right here. He says, "You'll keep this a secret. You must." He walked to the windows and spoke without turning. "This way, if anything should happen to me, you can tell her the truth, that I never doubted her, not for the smallest instant. I should want her to know this." Paul recognized the death thoughts in his father's words and spoke quickly. "Nothing's going to happen to you." And the Duke goes, "Be silent." Right. So this is the beginning of, we're starting to see the death thoughts, like his mortality, which harkens back to what, the Reverend Mother said at the very beginning, like nothing for the father.
Right. He's got no chance.
And so we're starting to see like this, like the wheels are starting to come out from underneath the Duke himself. And I love how Paul's response here. It's so as Paul stared at his father's back, seeing the fatigue and the angle of his neck and the line of the shoulders and the slow movements. That's the Bene Gesserit training kicking in there, watching him. Mm-hmm. "You're just tired, Father." "I am tired," the Duke agreed. "I'm morally tired. The melancholy degradation of the great houses has afflicted me at last. Perhaps, and we were such a strong people once." Who talks like that? The melancholy degradation of the great houses.
Duke Leto Atreides talks like that, son.
I guess you're right.
He's real.
So it's like, "Hey, yo, Dad, you haven't slept in like 3-4 days. You're taking these anti-fatigue pills. You should probably just get some rest, please. Right. You'll think a little bit better here."
Right.
It's like those ads. Remember those old Snickers ads?
Yeah.
Where it's like,
"You're not yourself when you're hungry," and it's like, dude turns into friggin' Elton John or something. It's being really dramatic.
He's like Betty White, just like hitting people. "You're not you when you're hungry." The Duke, "You're not you when you're tired. Stop being fallible."
"No, I will not take a nap. I am regal."
"I got stuff to do." So Paul spoke in quick anger. "Our house hasn't degenerated, hasn't it?" The Duke turned and faced his son, revealing dark circles beneath his hard eyes, a cynical twist of the mouth. Yes, he needs to go to bed. He's just go to bed.
Right.
Then he starts he loves Jessica so much that he starts to think he made a wrong decision by not just marrying her straight out, right. Or just by why not just leaving? He should have just left. But he knew that by not marrying her, it allowed him to be open for advancement, blah, 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 feudal system. That's why we don't have it anymore. Well, to some degree, I guess we still have it a little bit.
Kind of.
And yeah, you can start the Duke is just being super vulnerable at this time with Paul. And Paul's like, you lead well, you govern well, your men following you willingly. And I love this. The Duke says, the propaganda corps is at its finest.
Right. Can't take a compliment, this Leto.
Not at all.
He's just like at his end, like he doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't believe in himself. And he's just like trying to survive as long as possible. Like he's not trying to thrive in his life at all. He's just trying to like, all right, can I make it just like another day? Who cares about sleeping? Who cares about like, it's great.
No, yeah. And so like there's that analogy we talked about earlier, like his father jumped in the ring with the bullfights.
Right.
But I think Leto's kind of seeing this is a fight he can't win.
Right.
Yeah. And that's when you can see your father like jump into a fight he can't win. It's noble and also very sad.
Yeah.
Because you want the best, but you just, yeah. So then there's an interesting thing he talks about spice right here. Anytime we talk about spice, it's always a good time. So yeah, the Duke's talking, and then Paul goes, "Father, like, come on, pull your senses together." And the
Right.
Duke, "Yes, I am tired. Hey, did you know that they're using spice residue as raw material, and already have our own factory to manufacture film base?" Like, side tangent.
And Paul's like, what?
What does this have to do with anything?
What are you talking about? He just keeps going on his rant. This is like a very relatable moment for those of us fortunate enough to have like grown to adulthood with a father that's like involved in our lives.
Mhm.
Like when they just start going down the deep end one day, and you're just kind of like, dude, what are you saying? Like, what is happening? Like, no matter how good of a dude your dad is, like every once in a while they'll just kind of like have a screw loose, and they're like, I think I'm gonna do this. And you're like, what are you doing? You are going off the deep end, and I am not. Like, so that's
Pull yourself together here. What are we doing?
Paul's just like, dude, film base, go to sleep. Like, stop it.
Like your mind is making connections that are there, but not necessarily relevant at this time. You need to go to bed.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, film base. Let's talk about film.
Right. So he's like, yeah, we can flood the streets with propaganda because you can make spice to make the film base. But he also talks about, the Duke says that Arrakis has another advantage, that the spice is in everything. You breathe it, you eat it, and almost everything. You can find that in parts of certain natural immunity to some of the most common poisons to assassins. So spice is great.
Right.
And it's in everything. So you can't kill off large population with poison because it won't work because the spice is still there.
And because food is so hard to grow that it's like very guarded, like the whole production process is like very watched. So there's no way to like add poison to the food, right?
Right. So that's where the Duke says that Arrakis makes you more ethical. Like you have to face your problems head on. You can't try to sneak your way around it and just somebody get them out of the way.
So how did the Harkonnens last so long on Arrakis?
I mean, I think it was, well, we looked at how much money they were pulling out of Arrakis.
Right. Maybe they could afford to be sneaky.
I think, well, they were also wearing shields, but we know shields don't work there.
Right.
I think they were just pumping it, and they have no regard for life or human life. So they were just pumping in people. Just your pure empire.
Right.
Looking thing, no complete degradation.
Right.
So then we come back to the Duke has this thing in his head about, like on Caladan, they ruled by the sea and the air, but here we have to rule by desert. Okay, he says, this is your inheritance, Paul. What is to become of you if anything happens to me? There's that death thought again. You'll not just be a renegade house, but a guerrilla house. Runted, running, hunted. Paul groped for words and couldn't find anything to say. He'd never seen his father more despondent. That's just, it gets really sad there.
Right.
So, and then you see the flag, the Atreides flag. He points out the window. It's a green and black banner hanging limply. That honorable banner may come to mean many horrible, evil things. We're just gonna put a plug in that one. Just for those of you who have read the book, you know what I'm talking about. But for Ben and other people who have no idea, we're gonna plug in that one. What that flag means. Paul swallowed in his dry throat, and the father's words carried futilely a sense of fatalism that left the boy with an empty feeling in his chest. It's like his dad is dead before he's even dead.
Right.
It's like, damn. And at that moment, the Duke grabs another anti-fatigue pill from his pocket, pops it in there. Power and fear, he said, the tools of statecraft. I must order a new emphasis on guerrilla training for you. That film clip that called you Mahdi, Lisan al-Gaib. As a last resort, you might capitalize on that. And Paul was like, what are you talking about? And that's where the Duke's train of thought just goes off to the left. He said, what's keeping that ecologist? I told Cooper to have him here early. And thus ends chapter 14, a relatively short chapter where we see one of the last conversations we're going to see just between Paul and his dad. Yeah. And you see, like...
I didn't need to know that, Caleb.
Oh, snap, sorry, spoilers.
No, I mean, I could have seen that coming because of just, like, the way that he was acting.
Okay, good.
In this conversation versus, like, 2 chapters ago, the way that he was talking, you know, like, he was this, right, like, what I like to call the righteous and rightful ruler, you know, like, he had this, like...
He had aura, bravado.
He had this, like, royalty to him, and it was like he was a solid man, and now he's kind of like he's moving away from Aragorn, and he's kind of acting a little Denethor right now for the Lord of the Rings fans out there.
Yeah, no, it's a good analogy.
And that's creepy. It's creepy to watch him, like, degrade to that.
And I think the only person he can be truly vulnerable with at this point is Paul. He can't talk to Jessica anymore. Because he needs Jessica to think that she's the traitor, or he thinks that she's the traitor.
Right.
So Paul is the only person he can talk to.
Yeah.
And it's just, and he wants to set up his son best, right? And a couple of chapters ago, that quote was like, he's not easily hoodwinked.
Right.
So is the son just an extension of the father? Like, he's trying to set up Paul for this lane of like, yo, by the way, if things go awry and I'm gone, by the way, tell your mother I love her. I always trusted her. And just use that Mahdi thing. Just go for it. Guerrilla tactics all the way. Take him down.
Which I'm wondering, like, is it even just something that he needs to capitalize on? Is he that thing? You know?
Is he that thing?
I don't know, folks. I have no idea where this is going at all.
Is he the Kizrak Haderach? I don't know. We don't know.
It's so tense. Gosh. Okay, there was one thing that we didn't talk about that I think I would like to talk about.
Please, Evan, share with the class.
Right before the Duke starts talking about the banner, he says, to hold Arrakis, one is faced with decisions that may cost one his self-respect. What's that about? Like, that's okay. I'm sure that's some foreshadowing that you don't want to spoil anything, but that's a pretty loaded and heavy statement, you know?
I think back to the note that Lady Fenring said, which was like the proximity of a thing. What was the quote? The proximity of a thing leads to like danger.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is wealth and power. Arrakis is wealth and power.
Yeah.
That to keep, like, everybody will clamor to have this thing. The Emperor, it will not easily give this up. The Harkonnens will not easily give this up.
Yeah.
So to keep it, and like do it the right way, because the Duke is a good ruler, right? He wants to rule for the people, for the Fremen. He wants the Fremen to respect him, and they were hunted under the Harkonnens. Like, he wants to do this for the betterment of the whole Imperium, but to do that, he may need to do some bad things.
Right.
And that sucks.
That does suck. Because he's like left and right. Every single decision, he's trying to figure out the most honorable, righteous, legal way about going, like making each of those decisions, you know, like he's trying to figure out the best way to do everything all the time. And still he's saying that like, you're going to have to like lose some of your own respect. Like you're going to lose respect for yourself. So.
Yeah. And yeah, in doing that, that's not going to be fun. And next chapter, we meet the ecologist, which is very fun. I'm very excited about the next chapter. Yeah. You probably won't read it, Mr. Evan, until minutes before we record.
Right.
So it will be juicy and spicy when we get there.
Is it one of the long chapters that you were talking about?
It's a long chapter.
Okay, cool.
We got 3 long chapters in a row.
So excited.
Yeah, it's going to be intense. I love it. When, for those of you who have read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about and you are pumped about this chapter because it is.
Oh man, it's like a thing. It's like
a thing. It's a big moment.
Oh.
Well, until next week, guys, you can follow us here on Twitter at Reading Dune. You can email us any questions or comments or concerns. Maybe I'm pronouncing something wrong or you don't like the way never mind. Everything Evan does is perfect, so there's nothing you not like about him. But you can email us at readingdune@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you got going on, any questions, anything you want clarified. We can definitely clarify it or find answers for you. So that's what's going on. And please stay spicy.
Stay spicy, everyone.
Peace.